Hey guys, it's Faye from Solarflow and I am back with an all new video. Today's topic is a deep dive behind the veil energy read on all things Halloween. We are going to be exploring both the origin of it as well as how it has evolved over time to what it currently is. We're also going to be looking into if the veil is in fact thinnest this time of year and why that may be. And we're also lastly going to finish up by looking into some of the most well-known ghouls of all time and seeing if they are in fact real and true. So if this sounds good to you, please stick around, and if not, I will catch you at another video. Now lastly, before we dive in, I do just want to share that my intention in doing this video is never meant to influence you. As I always say, you do you, boo. So if you love a good trick-or-treating session, if you love to get dressed up, you yourself, if you love to do it with your kids and take them out, don't allow this video to be anything that's going to act as a deterrent to you. This is just done with the intention of exploring and sharing. And what are we exploring? We're going to be looking into the 3D manifestations of the world playing out around us. And then by peeling back that 3D veil and looking behind it, we're going to be exploring what are the soul, spiritual, energetic, or vibrational components that are comprising the world around us. Not just in this video, in all of my videos. And if you are new here and that sounds like your vibe, you may have just found your tribe, and I invite you to subscribe. Lastly, if you're enjoying this video or at any point during it you are, I would invite you to please smash that like button. All right, let's dive in. So the way that this video is formatted, we are going to first be exploring the 3D representation of Halloween, the origin of it, and how it has evolved over time to what it currently is. We're then next going to be looking at the energetic component behind the veil of it, then looking into the veil aspect, and lastly looking into the ghouls. There will probably be timestamps down below. I invite you, of course, as always, to hop around, but the way in which I've chosen to format this is that it tells most like a story. So if you can watch it all the way through, I do invite you to. All right. Now, let's look into some of the 3D ways in which Halloween shows up now before we hop into our time machine and we go back in time, which is that there is an estimated 179 million Americans that currently celebrate Halloween now in 2023. And those 179 million Americans spend an estimated average of 9.1 billion, billion with a B, $9.1 billion in preparation for it. What are those preparations? Yes, of course, it is the purchasing of candy to give out to the trick-or-treaters, but it might also be costumes, and then it's also the bedecking of one's exterior of the house to show how much they are enjoying or how much they actually invest in the holiday itself. I know driving around my neighborhood, sometimes I'll see like a 10-foot tall skeleton on the exterior of a house. Of course, there's always like the ghosts, the ghouls, the tombstones, the spiders, always spiders, right? And these are the spider webs. These are always a reflection of the holiday. Okay. Interesting and notable, perhaps one could say. So we're going to be looking into what are the origin points of that, right? Like where did all of this ghoulishness come from? Where did the spiders come from? Where did the bats come from? Why ghosts? Why ghouls? We're getting there, I promise. But first, before we hop into our time machine, I just want to say that Halloween didn't really become much of it was kind of a bit of a nothing burger until the 1950s. And then in the 1950s, and ever since then, there's been a gradual uptake in it to where it has been incredibly overpopularized at this time. And I'm even going to say that in the last probably 10 years, I myself have even seen how it is like it's everywhere. It's massive. There's pop-up shops that are popping up just to sell costumes for Halloween. There is, all of the, like, every grocery store or Target, everything like that. They have like their bullseye section in the front where they have all of the, the pumpkins that people can go trick-or-treating with. There's all the candy in the front section. It's big. It's exploded. It's really being pushed forth onto the world stage. I would say even in the last 10 years, more than prior to then. And this is notable. And it's notable because, first and foremost, anything that the 3D matrix is selling might in fact probably be something that we would be better questioning before diving into it unknowingly, and because we don't know what is the origin point of what we're actually giving our energy and attention to. Because without the understanding of the origin point of it, we don't know where and what something is rooted in. And the origin point of it will say a lot about the energy that it is steeped in. And this is where I'm going to say that the origin point of any single holiday is actually a bit like a tea bag. Weird explanation, I know, but I'm going to explain it to you and you'll see why I chose that to be the reference. All right, so a tea bag. Think about a tea bag. No matter how many times one would reuse it, obviously, like the first time you're going to use the tea bag, the essence and the flavor that is permeating into the hot water is going to be the most potent. But it doesn't matter if it's the 5th time, the 10th time, the 20th time, there is always more from the tea bag that can be seeped into the water. And holidays, all holidays, not just Halloween, all holidays are like that as well. Because yes, the first launch point, if you will, of any sort of a holiday, just like with the first time you use the tea bag, the flavor is going to be the most potent, but then in time, no matter how many years or decades or generations have even passed, just like with that tea bag, there is always something that can still be extracted from it. And that's where we're going to go back and we're going to look at the origin point of Halloween. Because what may we be giving our attention and our energy to unknowingly? Let's explore. So, in case you are wondering if Halloween has a dark history, as some people have perhaps proposed, a very, very quick Google search has revealed this to me. Halloween does in fact have a dark history. Again, not sharing this meant to dissuade you, just sharing so we can know, so we can then explore. Now, when I say dark history, what exactly does that mean? So Halloween originates from the Celtics, who believed that spirits would commune with their priests on a particular time of the year. What time was that? This time. Because the veil is said to be the most thin right now. We're going to get to that, I promise. Keep watching. So the Celtics believed that at this time right now that we are currently in, the veil between dimensions, or the veil between worlds, was at its most thin, and therefore energetically would be the most easy for them to commune with their spirits. And why would they want to commune with the spirits? So the spirits could reveal to them or predict things about the future. Is this going to be a favorable harvest year? Is this going to be a favorable time for the village? What is coming up for us? Anything that we need to know about? Is another neighboring village going to want to pillage us? Very, very practical 3D things that a village would actually like to know. So even though the holiday had originated with the priests and the druids wanting to commune with the spirits on the other side, because everything that they were going to be finding out was going to actually be pertaining to their villagers, soon the villagers would get involved as well. And therefore, the druids, the priests, and the villagers would make bonfires in which they would sacrifice crops and animals to appease the spirits and make the spirits most likely to want to come in and to commune with them. And what were the villagers doing at these bonfires? Because when you're opening up a portal to the other side, do we always know what's going to come in? If you hear a knock at your door and one is not discerning and one is not looking through the peephole to see who's on the other side, and we just open it, could we be surprised if there was maybe somebody we're not expecting there? Discernment. So what were the villagers doing at these bonfires? They would adorn their bodies in animal heads and animal skins to ward off any potential ghosts that were also crossing through. The priests want to talk with the benevolent spirits, but once you're opening again that door, is it possible that there's going to be some malevolent spirits that come in as well? Abso-fucking-lutely. That's why the villagers would adorn their bodies in a way that was meant to be scary and horrific to actually scare off the other entities that were crossing through. Now, how did Halloween start to evolve in time? So, in time, Christian popes had wanted to rebrand Halloween, and they wanted to replace this pagan holiday and turn it into a religious observance. So what did they do? They then rebranded it to be a so-called All Saints' Day, or All Hallows, honored saints. And what was the date of this practice? November 1st, which in turn turned into October 31st as Hallows Eve, or as we know it today, Halloween. Now again, this is to reflect the point that it may have been rebranded somewhere along the way, which is to take it out of being a pagan holiday and turned into a religious observance in which all saints were going to be honored. But again, look at the origin point of the holiday, because the origin point, no matter how many times it is steeped in water, no matter how much time has passed, no matter how many times it's been rebranded and repurposed and repackaged, the energy of what it first started out being, the intentionality behind it, has continued to travel all the way through. Because if this was done back with the Celtics, it was done at a time of year when the veil was at its most thin, and therefore it was easiest for them to then commune. Nothing has changed between when this practice had first come to be, because is the veil actually the most thinnest at this time of year? Yes, it is in fact the thinnest. And then therefore, we may actually be participating in a holiday that is meant to still engage with and directly interact with the entities that may be crossing through, because the veil is the thinnest. But let's talk a little bit more about the veil so-called being the thinnest at this time of year and why that may in fact be. Then we're going to get into how Halloween has evolved into today's day and time. And for this, I go to a different notebook. So I was curious when I was reading this three-dimensional information, that the veil is in fact most thin. Is that true? Let's see. So yes, in fact, it is well and true that at this time of year, anything I would say in the weeks leading up to Halloween to the weeks thereafter, and also not for nothing, but we have eclipses at this time of year. But the veil is in fact thinnest this time of year. And why? What came first, the chicken or the egg? Okay. The veil is in fact thinnest because it is working in tandem with our own personal vibrations. What does that mean? The veil is thinnest because our own personal resistance to the seasons is actually at its lowest. And this time then too, the energy is lowered as well, corresponding with the seasons and the shifting climate. So what does that all mean? It means that if you think about at the height of summer, whether you're in the northern hemisphere or whether you're in the southern hemisphere, when you think of the absolute height of your summer, we have a lot of expectations in the way we think our seasons are supposed to, or the way we would ideally like it to play out, right? If you live at a coastal town, you might want to actually, for example, in the summertime, you might want to go to the beach. Our kids are in day camp. The days are longer, so our energy is always diverted elsewhere. We're out of the house for more hours of the day. We're probably spending time with our friends for more hours of the day. The way in which we're dressing at the height of summer is also very, very different. We're most pared down. We have the least amount of clothing on us. So our energy is most fixed at the height of summer. Again, regardless of northern or southern hemisphere, our personal energy in the summertime is the most fixed. There is not a lot of flexibility in our personal energy and our personal vibration as we relate to the time of year. Also, what was shown to me is if you think about at the height of summer, the air is also the most thick and the most dense, and the climate is the most humid. Therefore, because even the air around us is so thick and so dense, it's kind of like it's reinforcing the 3D veil through the climate of our particular environment. It's kind of like, imagine when you first get out of your shower, if you have the water blasting hot and your bathroom door is closed, when you get out of the shower, there's going to be a lot of steam on your mirrors. Are you going to be able to see your reflection the most clearly? No, of course not. There's too much steam. There's too much accumulation of the humidity in the air in your bathroom. It's kind of like that when we're outside as well. It's reinforcing the three-dimensional veil. Therefore, it's not a energetically congruous time with seeing beyond the veil. Now, similarly too, in winter, our attention is also fixed, but it's fixed in a very different way, right? So even though the air is still and the air is not humid, and it is empty, however, our focus is still diverted elsewhere. Because we're focusing on getting home and getting out of the cold. Usually when we're even getting out of work, it's already dark. Like, do we really want to be traipsing around in the cold, running a million errands? No, not usually. I mean, I don't know about you. Maybe you like to. I personally don't. So our focus is much more shifted towards getting home and being home. And we are then energetically much more likely to be introverted at this time. Now, to go back to the example I had used of having a lot of steam in the shower, even if our bathroom is not so steamy, we still are going to be cold when we get out of it. So we're going to want to, quickly towel ourselves off, and we're going to quickly want to go get dressed. Are we hanging around in the bathroom and looking at our reflection? No. So again, energetically, in the height of winter, our focus is elsewhere and our attention is still very much fixed. It's just fixed in a different kind of way. However, so look at it this way. At the height of either the winter or the summer, our own internal vibration and our own internal focus is very much fixed energetically. However, in the fall and the spring, again, irrespective of northern versus southern hemisphere, at this time, we are at our most flexible. Here's why, just focusing on the 3D. In the morning, it might be a little bit chilly. And then in the afternoon, it might start to warm up. And then in the evening, it might be chilly again. So we might actually have to start to layer. Okay, I'm gonna wear maybe a lighter shirt, but I'm gonna layer it with a jacket on top. Maybe I'm gonna start to bring out some of my cuter seasonal items, right? Maybe my cute cozy sweaters, maybe my cute cozy boots. It's also, of course, pumpkin seed, it's pumpkin everywhere season. But we're starting to kind of we're still living out in the world because the days are not quite as short, but we're reflecting more on how we want to show up in the world differently at that time. And then because we're starting to take out, in the Northern Hemisphere at least, we're starting to take out our cute and cozy sweaters, this is then inviting us to, again, look into the mirror on a very, very three-dimensional level. This is all gonna tie in a moment though. We're starting to look in the mirror a little bit more because we've now taken our sweaters out of the closet, right? We're taking them out after having a long season off. We're looking at it. Do I still like this sweater? Do I want to wear it today? How do I want to dress it? How do I want to style it? What do I want to wear it with? So it's more of a time in which we are being invited to spend more time reflecting on ourselves. Now, that's in the Northern Hemisphere. In the Southern Hemisphere, our attention is slowly starting to be invited more back out into the world because as the weather starts to warm up, we're being invited out. But again, it's still at a time where it's not quite hot, it's not quite cold, we're still a little bit in between. So we're still kind of having to assess how, in the way in which we want to go out into the world in a three-dimensional way. Who do we want to be spending our time with, and what do we want to be doing? So it is still very much a time in which there's a lot of reflection all around it. Now, what was also shown to me is that this is a time in which there is an equal amount of daylight versus night hours. So if you look at it like, what is the summer equinox? It's the longest day of the year. What is the winter equinox? It's the shortest day of the year. But what is the fall and spring equinox? It's the time of the year where there is an equal amount of light versus dark. Therefore, it is the most energetically balanced time of the year as well. Now, it's not just balanced in terms of light versus dark in our particular location and where we're living. However, this is also where it is the most energetically favorable time of year because energetically there is the most harmony and the most balance between not just light and dark, but the northern and the southern hemispheres as well. Therefore, the energy in the world is the most aligned. And we are at our most flexible at the time of the year where the energy is the most aligned. Therefore, that allows the veil to be the thinnest in allowing us to then see beyond the veil. That is why it is in fact thinnest at this time of year. Let's explore more. So, now that we have established the origin points of Halloween, now that we have also started to look into, even despite the rebranding, it's rooted in a practice that came from the Celtics on communing, because the veil was its most thinnest, communing with the spirits on the other side. Has that ever really changed? Have we steeped that tea bag enough to really rinse away the essence of it? Let's find out. Yes, it has been rebranded to be All Saints' Day, which was meant to be honoring the saints. But the time of year in which it was practiced never actually changed. It may be shifted back a day from November 1st to October 31st, right? But the time of year and the energy at this time of year is in fact where the veil is the most thinnest. Now, how did it continue to evolve in time? Despite the rebranding, people in Old England and Ireland continued to associate the end of October with the dead wandering amongst them, because again, the veil is the most thinnest. So what they would then do is they would set out food to satisfy the hungry spirits that were wandering around them. And then that in turn led to people dressing in creepy costumes to, again, look more like the creepy spirits that are wandering around you. So they're not going to be like, person. They're going to be like, creepy spirit. Because again, back in the day with the Celtics, they were able to see the spirits that were coming in. And there was some creepy fucking shit that was coming in. So they were adorning their bodies in an equally creepy way to ward off those spirits. So this in turn led to people dressing up in creepy costumes and to go begging for treats in a practice called humming, similar to today's trick-or-treating. So the entire idea of getting dressed up was to, if you will, keep your own physical vessel protected and safe from the other spirits that were crossing through, or the other spirits that were walking amongst us, even if we ourselves could not see it, by most dressing like them. Done with that notebook. All right, let's get to the primary notebook now. So, is it then a wonder that because the veil is the thinnest at this time of year, and it was originally first done with the intention of communing with other spirits, again, not always can they be so discerning to know what spirits are actually going to be crossing through. But because the veil is so thin at this time of year, is it then really any wonder that in an energetic level, it's an excuse to celebrate and ground our energy fully and completely back into the 3D? Because if we truly were able to tap into and to understand how energetically favorable this time of year was for ourselves to align with higher divine energies, right? So what was done energetically, it's a way to really, really fully now in modern day time, because again, like the Christians had rebranded it. It's All Saints Day. Let's celebrate the saints. Is anybody celebrating saints right now in 2023? No. We have, if you will, extracted all of the spiritual meaning behind it, and we've made it all about the 3D. What's the 3D? It's the pursuit of getting dressed up. It's the pursuit of eating candy, right? Those are all 3D practices. They're not spiritual practices in the least. Nobody is celebrating saints. Nobody is even using the favorable energy at this time to connect to the divine. It's all 3D, 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 3D. So energetically, please understand that the reason that it has been put forth on the world stage to the extent that it has been done now is to eradicate any connection that we may have to actual saintlyhood or saints or working with the most favorable energy because the veil is so thin. Now, in addition, I'm also going to say that look at it this way. Not only is it all about the 3D manifestations, i.e., getting dressed up or going trick-or-treating or getting candy, but also look at it this way. The practice of getting dressed up is done to eradicate our own personal identities. It's done to conceal our identities. And why is this notable? Because by us engaging in this trick-or-treating, what we're essentially saying, or what it first started out as being, is either give me a treat, i.e. candy, or I'm going to play a trick on you. So it's actually energetically a time of year that is calling for us then to not be our most energetically aligned as well. Give me a treat, or I'm going to play a trick on you. And because my identity is already concealed, ostensibly you're really not even meant to know who's playing the trick on you. So again, it's not a high vibe energy. It's not a high vibe energy for the holiday. Now, because it is not a high vibe holiday, but it has been turned into the most base 3D representation of the holiday itself, Is it then therefore any wonder that it is designed to bring out a naughtier side of ourselves? Again, give me a treat or I'm going to play a trick on you. Naughty, naughty. So then is it really any surprise that costumes in time have, at least for the adults, certainly I'm not suggesting that kids would dress this way, but certainly for the adults, the costumes have become more and more slutty. We got the slutty, the slutty maid. We got the slutty nurse. We got the slutty witch. We got the slutty cheerleader. All of the costumes, and so I'm also not suggesting, I mean, again, you do you, boo. If you're if you're tight and you're toned and you're like a hot 40-year-old, baby, go fucking flaunt that shit. Ain't nobody gonna be throwing shade at you if you got it going on. But I think it's more meant for the 20-year-olds that are like just getting into it and they're just out of their parents' house and they're like at college and then therefore when we are inviting ourselves to be dressed that way, when it's already a time of year in which we are energetically encouraged to be the most naughty, what then kind of behavior is that going to be encouraged as well from all of these, cute little, whatever age you are, dressing, naughty, dressing slutty? So the veil is the most thin, where entities can in fact cross over. And then if people are going to be engaging in a lot of hookup culture at this time, guess the fuck what that also does? What am I always talking about? Hookup culture is leaving our physical vessel very energetically open and porous to the exchange of energies coming in. And then when they're coming in, they're leaving energy with you. And then when they leave you, they're taking a piece with you. So if you're a woman, your anatomy is designed to be receiving the male phallus, a male penis. So when they're coming into your body, they're going to be leaving a piece of themselves behind. When they leave your body, they're taking something out of you as well. So there's an enormous amount of energetic exchange that's going to lead to a lot of energetic dysregulation in the earth at this time, which is then further doing what? It's further obfuscating the entire point of this time of year, which is that because the veil is so thin, it's an incredibly favorable time to sit in meditation and to see what insight or what brilliance actually comes through. So energetically, it's just all done to obfuscate how energetically potent this time of year actually is. Let's keep exploring more. So we have, in essence, if you could say, have been lulled into participating and partaking in this holiday without actually understanding what is going on behind the veil, which is what? It's a very, very energetically potent time of year. And that, yes, because it's such an energetically potent time of year, there could in fact be a lot of spirits that are walking around amongst us, which is why we are also dressing up in a way to make ourselves appear to be the most creepy to ward them at bay. So one could say, I'm not going to suggest it, because again, you do you, boo, but one could say actually the best use of our time at this time of year would be an introvert's dream, sitting at home on our sofa, maybe reading a good book, maybe meditating, maybe spending time with, our close friends and communing with them. But maybe not in fact actually being out and about when there are going to be, unknowns to us, all of these spirits that are also walking amongst us. 2% personal opinion. So, also the way in which, even take the slutty, and I'm not saying that again to throw shade, but take the proliferation of the slutty, whatever somebody wants to dress up as at this time of year. What are the way in which the kids are actually dressed? They're dressed as ghosts, they're dressed as ghouls, they're dressed as witches, right? Or at least that's the way it was, probably when I was also a kid. So what do you see around you? You're seeing other kids dressed up in such a way. Now, I'm also going to say this is not actually my holiday. I've never actually even celebrated it. That I'm not throwing shade at it for that reason. It's just to say again that by exploring, we can then share and we can then have a better understanding of what is going on behind the veil on an energetic level. But the way in which kids certainly used to dress up before it was like thrust onto the world stage as it is now, Was kids were dressing, I mean, I remember, you know, being 10 years old and trick-or-treaters coming to my mom's house. What were they wearing? It was like so wholesome in a way. Their mom would throw a sheet over them and would cut out holes for the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. It's kind of actually wholesome, right? It's cheap, it's effective, it's still concealing the energy, but it was very much still done with this idea of putting on something that was designed to be scary. And again, now that we understand the reason for it, it's to ward off the being around the other spirits that have actually crossed in that genuinely and truly are scary. So again, the original way in which kids were dressing up as ghosts and ghouls also kind of says it all about the energy of the holiday. Now, let's explore. This is the point where we're going to start to be looking into some of the most well-known ghoulish kind of creatures and exploring if they may in fact be well, real, and true. All right, we're going to start with zombies. Zombies. So, in my looking into if zombies are in fact true, there has been no amount of time, absolutely no amount of time, in my seeking or energetic exploration that has brought anything of this kind up to the surface. Simply put, zombies aren't real. Sorry, there's not actually going to be a zombie outbreak. I know I'm kind of disappointed also. I thought, you know, my 2020 decade bingo card, it had a zombie outbreak on it, but it's not going to happen. Zombies are not in any way, shape, or form actually true. They simply do not exist. However, you may then be wondering, why do we see zombies? Why has there been such a, my new favorite word apparently, why has there been such a overproliferation of zombie content all around us, right? There's zombie comic books that have been turned into zombie TV shows, and there's zombie movies, and there's, right? It's kind of been like, it's having its moment. It's having its 15 minutes of fame. Why might that be? Now, what was actually shown to me about that, because there is no actual basis or truth to them actually existing, what was shown, this is so wild. I love my guides. What was shown to me is about the proliferation of zombies on the world stage is that it's actually being done to use as predictive programming. It's to make certain things that we maybe see playing out in the world around us more palatable or more digestible, where we're going to be seeing it and it's almost like it's not going to be so bad, or it's not going to be registering as so bad, because we've actually seen the way zombies can appear to be in film or TV shows, right? Like, what are they, the way they show them to be? They look like a hot fucking mess, right? Like, they've got probably like maybe like a gunshot wound to their chest, and like their flesh is peeling off of their face, and maybe like you can only, maybe one side of the face has flesh and the other side doesn't, and you can see like the skeleton and you can see the bone, and then like maybe they're missing body parts, and they're just like walking around aimlessly, only with one intention, which is to bite another person, which is going to quest their hunger or quest their thirst or whatever it is, right? Where in the world might we be seeing this playing out, but in a less extreme way? i.e., there are cities, at least in the United States right now, where homeless people are being given drugs. And it could be, you know, it's at like a shelter. It could be like 10 cities, or it could literally be where they can go to a place, they can register themselves, and then they can be given drugs for absolutely free. Okay. So if someone is actually a homeless person, we're then going to assume that they don't have the luxury of either showering or bathing. They might not have a consistent meal, so they're going to appear to be very, very gaunt. They're going to appear to be maybe lacking in hygiene. And also, if they don't even have money to know where their next meal is coming from, or to buy new clothing, or to shelter themselves, then their appearance is actually going to be very, very gruff. And then you're giving drugs to them, which is going to numb them out. And there's actually footage that you can find online, certainly TikTok, where you can see footage of people in San Francisco and New York City where people are strung out and they're drugged out and they're homeless and they're wandering around high as a fucking kite, or they're sprawled out on the sidewalk just laying there in a drug stupor. Does that not remind us a little bit of actual Walking Deads? But hey, at least they've got all their skin. So do you see how it was done as in a predictive programming kind of way, where it's like, hey, we're used to already seeing this idea of people like wandering around, not really in themselves. But hey, it's not so bad. It's not like that because they've got their skin and at least they're fully clothed and they're not missing any body parts. It was done in a way to actually desensitize us. All right, let's talk more about it. Because anything playing out in the world stage doesn't have only one explanation. It's got many explanations. Now, another explanation is, look at it this way. Why are zombies not actually real and true in the Matrix world? And this is because if you think about, again, looking at it from the Matrix, right? The film The Matrix, where every person was hooked up into the system where their life force energy was siphoned off of them. You actually kind of have to be alive to have your life force energy siphoned off of you. What are zombies? They're the unalived, right? They're unalived, but they can walk amongst us. Sure, they're not talking. Sure, they're not eating, except like our flesh, but they're unalived. So anything that's unalived doesn't have a life force energy to be siphoned off of it, not in any way, shape, or form. So they're not actually real because the Matrix doesn't want anything that the life force energy can't be siphoned off of. So rest assured, once you cross out of your body will not actually ever rise again. It will not ever be an unalived, and it will not terrorize any person ever. Because the life force energy of all people on Earth is within itself a currency all its own. And it is an incredibly desirable currency. And if there ain't nothing that can be siphoned off of a person, there ain't no currency that can be extracted from that person. So if there's nothing to siphon off and there's no one to play with because they're unalived, there's simply no point in having them. And that's why they don't actually exist. Not really, not truly. Only on the streets of big cities like San Francisco and New York. All right, the next ghoul that we're going to be looking into are vampires. Are vampires real? All right, we're gonna start here. And I'm first gonna start by saying, again, my new favorite word, overproliferation. Anytime there is an overproliferation of anything, there's an energetic or vibrational explanation for why it is manifesting in the 3D world around us. But whereas there's an overproliferation of zombies, that's more of a modern day phenomenon that's been used for predictive programming. Vampires, on the other side, there's an overproliferation. It's not a modern day phenomenon. The very, very first book about vampires that kicked off the whole trend, Dracula, it's like hundreds of years old. It didn't come from nowhere, and it's not a modern day phenomenon. So again, anytime we have an overproliferation of books, movies, TV shows that are featuring vampires, it is first and foremost proof to how much it actually does exist on an energetic level in the world playing out around us, and that's why there is a physical representation in the matrix of it. Now, this is also where I'm going to say not to freak anybody out, it doesn't mean that there's actually, again, I know, especially anyone who's seen Twilight, in our formative years, of course. I'm not going to confirm or deny that's one of my guilty pleasures to watch. But certainly anyone that has seen Twilight in their formative years. Maybe I can't speak for you, but certainly for myself, I was thinking, oh my God, life would be so much more exciting. Like, if there were vampires that were really, really smoking hot and like they wanted us, but they didn't want to like feast off of us, but I know I'm not alone here, but it definitely would lend itself to the world being certainly a lot more spicy, but would lend itself to the world being a lot more exciting, right? Because also imagine if we were like the Cullen family and we had a picky kind of dietary restrictions where we wouldn't actually eat people, but we would eat animals, but we'd have all of these cool like abilities, like amazing vision, speed, we wouldn't have to sleep, we could, it sounds kind of cool in theory. I know it's not. I know I'm not alone here. So there's something to it, right? At least when we're looking at it from the lens of like, we're not going to be their next meal. But there's something to, and also here, like, look at the way that all of the, not Count Dracula, like, he was like the first one to kick it off. But look at in all of the TV shows, look at in all of the movies, anytime there's vampires, they're so fucking smoking hot. You got like the Edward Cullens. You got, Buffy. Well, no, Buffy was the vampire slayer, but all of the vampires were hot. All of the Cullen family members were smoking hot, irrespective of their actual age. So, hey, I could live forever. I could be smoking hot. I would never run out of time, so I could educate myself on everything and anything that the world actually has to offer. And I don't actually have to hurt anybody. And I would have all of these cool, like superhuman abilities. Sign me the fuck up, right? It's meant to be rather alluring. But the reality is, the way in which energy is actually siphoned off of people is far less exciting. Because one of the biggest ways that energy is siphoned off is through sodomy. Now, again, you do you, boo. If that's your jam and you're into it, cool. Much love, much respect, much props to you. But please do understand that when you're engaging in that activity, your energy is still being connected to and it is still being siphoned off. Now imagine even more so when someone is getting into it, or getting into it is the wrong word. When one is exposed to it because they are actually a child and they cannot consent to it, how much more traumatizing it actually is to them. Panda eyes, anyone? And why are they actually the most attractive candidates for it to be done to them? It's because their energetic blueprint is the highest. Whether you have kids or whether you've seen kids, their energy level is hella fucking high. And that is why they are the most enticing meal, one could say, for energy to be extracted from them. That's just simply on an energetic level. Let's go into some 3D representations of it in the actual world. And this is where we're going to hop in our little time machine, and I'm going to direct us back to, first and foremost, kings from days of yore. What would their personal physicians do when a king was sick? They would do a practice called bloodletting. And what is bloodletting? It's where they were essentially being drained of their blood because the sickness was thought to be in their blood. Sick blood and extraction of blood. Bloodletting. They would drain them of their blood. Or they would actually attach leeches to them because leeches suck the blood of whatever host they are connected to. I wonder where they got the idea to extract blood from a person if not for the actual practice of literal vampirism as well. Because sprinkled throughout history are tales of people that have engaged in one form of vampirism or another. Now, it might not actually be where they're sinking their canines into a person's neck or into a person's wrist, and they're literally sucking the blood out of them. However, I draw your attention to a historical figure, an actual woman that existed by the name of, I think her name was Lady Elizabeth Bathory. And I believe that she lived somewhere in the 15 or 1600s. What did she like to do? She liked to bathe in the blood of young maidens because she thought it would help preserve her youth. I wonder where she got that idea from. Preserving youth by bathing in the blood of youth. Similar, one could say, to wanting to have a higher energetic output by extracting the energy of the youth through the practice of sodomy. Who else do we have? Vlad the Impaler, who was known to stick the heads of his opponents onto spikes outside of his Transylvanian castle. And when people are beheaded, there be a lot of blood. So even if we're going to say that there was as much as anything could be on the up and up, because people were being beheaded to put their heads on spikes, even if we're going to say that there was nothing else malicious that was going on, at the best, this is someone, and all of the people that were around him that were doing the beheading, these were people that were extremely desensitized to the sight of blood, that therefore when they were doing the beheading and putting their heads onto spikes, they weren't at all put off by blood. People don't really just become that desensitized to blood unless they're around a lot of blood. And why would they be around a lot of blood? Probably because there's a lot of siphoning of blood. Okay, so yes, yes, and yes. Vampires, some form, one form or many form of vampires are all well and true and have been around for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Here's why I'm going to say thousands, because there are two entities by the name of Moloch and Baal that demanded human sacrifices to them. So if they were around thousands of years ago that people were doing these human sacrifices to them, isn't it possible that they're still around? Just putting that up there for you to think about. Now, I'm also going to say that why did Moloch and Baal call for human sacrifices? Because there were specific rituals that were done at the time of the sacrifice that would invoke dark energies and dark presences into the world by way of the rituals. And what were the rituals? They were blood, sex, magic rituals. Simply put, this is dark magic, right? This ain't like high vibes only. No. This is like, we want to open a portal to bring dark energies into the world. And the way in which it was done was through these rituals that also contained blood, sex, and magic. And the blood wasn't, here's the thing, how did they come to have it? These sacrifices were like somebody was thrown into the fire. No, because then you wouldn't have the blood. It was actually where the person was kept alive. And they were seeing all of these experiences that were playing out around them, where the other people that were engaging in these rituals were feasting on them and were feasting on their blood, because feasting on their blood would drive them into a frenzy. And then once in a frenzy, the portal could be opened with the last component, which was the magic, in which the dark entities would come in. And once these dark entities, as I have spoken about in previous videos, you got a dark entity coming into your body, they're a dark entity, right? They don't want to take your body to take your granny to buy groceries. They don't want to go to church. They want to do fucked up shit with your body because they don't actually have one when they are on the other side. But now that the ritual has been done and the portal has been opened and then they can cross through, they're doing fucked up shit with the bodies. And that's where the sex came in. So it was complete debauchery done in a sacrifice to Moloch and Baal. It was debauchery. And again, the people that they were obtaining the blood from were alive and awake the entire time while they were being feasted on. Because through the experience of them being awake and through the experience of them observing all of this, would be in their own state of complete fear. And that would then do what? It would spike a lot of adrenaline to appear into their blood. And once you got the adrenaline flowing, it makes the experience and the enjoyment of the feasting on them that much more potent and that much more powerful. So again, these people were not thrown into a fire. They were kept alive. They were kept awake for the entirety of the ritual until they were drained dry. So yes, whether we just want to say that vampirism exists in movies and in TV shows, in books, please understand that for it to even exist in the 3D world, there has to be an energetic component that is comprising it. And the energetic component of it is the energy vampirism. It doesn't only have to occur, by the way, through sodomy. There are energy vampires that will extract your energy just by eliciting some sort of a response in you, either scaring you or freaking you out, or there's any number of ways. And I actually have a video on energy vampirism it's an old video. And if you're okay with like the bad lighting that I had back then, speaking of lighting, let me make this one a little brighter. But if you're okay with the bad lighting that I had back then, it's a fascinating video. And I've linked it down below if you do want to actually go back and if you do want to actually watch it. But again, energetic vampirism very much exists well and true in the world. And then it's up for you if you want to believe that in addition to energetic vampirism existing, beyond the scope of energy, if it's also existing through sodomy. And then it's also on you if you want to decide based on the information that I have shared herein. You can go back and you can research Baal and Moloch and you can see that they actually requested sacrifices. And that there was a lot of debauchery that was going on around those times as well. So, you know, I'm leading the horse to water, but whether or not you're choosing to drink, free will reigns supreme, guys. So yes, vampirism is very real in the world, whether it has been done through actual blood, through actual sacrifices, through energy, it exists well and true in the world. Now, the next ghouls that I'm going to be looking into are ghosts and or spirits. And this is what I have to say about them. Any surprise? Yes, of course they exist. However, they have a bad rap because they have been portrayed as evil souls that stick around and cause us a lot of harm or just generally creep us out. However, in reality, beyond their bad rap, these are souls that are living without a body for one reason or another. And it may be because they're have just crossed over and they're kind of in like a precarious time, or it could be where there's souls that have chosen to stick around for any particular reason. However, they are all here temporarily and they are all hanging out and they all have their own particular reason for doing so. But They mean us no harm. And even if they did mean us harm, they don't have actual bodies to cause us harm with. They were actually also being shown to me, some of them that do choose to stick around, even though they've been given ample opportunity to cross over. They choose to stick around on an ongoing basis because they would like to remain here as pranksters and jokesters. And they're only doing it because they want to engage in a little bit of lighthearted entertainment here in the world. Because they know how dark and dense the energy actually is. They just want to kind of like, if you will, they kind of want to like punk us, right? But again, they don't have a body, so they can't actually cause us any physical harm. So at best, they can just do like little jokes and little pranks on us. And they're doing it, they're making the choice to be goofy and silly and to spread some genuine good vibes. However, what was also shown to me is that they can absolutely affect our power and electricity. And one of the surefire ways to know if you're not necessarily energetically sensitive, one of the most surefire ways to know if you actually have an entity around you, again, that is not going to harm you, but just wants to play pranks on you, is they can actually interfere with the power and the electricity in your home. Now, what was also shown to me about them is that ley lines are very potent, and I'll talk about what they are in a moment, but ley lines are particularly potent energetic points for them in which they will sometimes converge around because they then too can feel the power and the energy at a ley line. And what's a ley line? There are certain, just like we have like meridians in our body, and the meridians in our body control the flow of energy, there are actual meridian points on Earth that are areas of high energy convergences. It's not as potent as, for example, a portal. But think of like levels. A portal would be the most energetically high, and one step down, I'm even going to actually compare it like to the chakras in our body, because what is actually the most potent or the most highly aligned one that you would want to be open is your crown chakra. Because if this one is open, we could connect directly to the divine, right? So it's not to say that these ley lines are not, it's like not all of your meridian points in your body are created equal. However, they're all equally important because we want all of them to be open and to be communicating in a harmonious fashion, because then if they are, and if they are working at the most high vibration, then all of our energy can rise and we can then connect to the divine, and there's no areas or pockets in our body where the energy is being suppressed. So look at ley lines similarly the same way. They're not necessarily all created equally, but they are all created, or they are all experienced to spirits on the other side on a very, very high energetic level. Therefore, no matter where they are, no matter how energetically potent or energetically aligned or energetically open they are, they will all choose to converge around them, because even though they don't have bodies, when they are actually around a ley line, they can experience the power and the vibration and the energy that's around it. So they will like to converge around them so that way they can feel the energy. However, they were shown to me as mostly being spirits that are coming as going. Sometimes, if they're not the ones that are choosing to remain here on an ongoing basis to spread, positive vibes and some goodwill and good cheer, these are also the supportive elements that come in to check on us, right? So it could be like, how would a medium like me be able to pick up on the energy of somebody that's crossed over? Because they can come in and out. So sometimes the spirits that are around us are just like the supportive elements that are helping other people in their own personal lives. Now, what was also shown to me about these spirits, I love this, is that they actually shared with me that they laugh at ghost hunter TV shows. Because anyone that is sensitive to energy will certainly know that we do not need some sort of a device to measure or monitor anything to know if there are spirits around us. We feel them around us. Sometimes it can even come through as like the hair, if you're not even like around anybody else, right? You could feel like the hair on the back of your neck standing up. You could just feel like you're being watched and you're like, those shades are drawn and there's no one here but me. Why do I feel so creepy? So we don't need to have some sort of a device that's going to track or monitor the level of energy that is in any particular space. And that is all just done for TV to make TV dramatic. And it's also done with the intention of trying to get us to do what? To turn off our own internal guidance system. Because it's like, well, I can't trust that if I feel something to actually mean something, because I don't have a device to tell me if there's an actual entity here. I guess it just means that there isn't one. And it's done in a way to get us to abdicate our sense of reliability in what we ourselves are actually feeling. So that is what I have for you on ghosts. Next, we're going to be finishing up with witches. Our witches are in fact real and true. And this is what was shown to me. Of course, witches are real and they have been for some time. Now, witches were shown to me as being able to tap into the energy of an environment and therefore be able to influence it as well. They also can very much spellcast, and they can also, just like they can tap into the environment and the energy of the environment around them, they can also, through their spellcasting, temporarily influence the energy of those that they spellcast on. Don't get freaked out. I'm going to explain all of this. It's nothing to actually fear. I'll explain why. Because first and foremost, they are in fact the less violent versions of vampires, because they don't peddle in blood, but they peddle in energy. So at most, all they can do is temporarily siphon your energy off of you, leading you to then feel a bit tired and dysregulated thereafter, but no harm, no foul done outside of that. And again, I'm not making light of it. I'm not being like, well, if I've had my energy siphoned off of me. It's not a good feeling. It doesn't matter if it's 1 minute or 10 years of siphoning. It's not a good feeling. So I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that once they can attract, because again, energy is everything. The vibration that we're on is everything. So once they can attract somebody that is an energetic match for them, and if you have a high vibration, they won't be able to actually attract and siphon your energy off of you, which that's why I say stay in a high vibration. But they have to be a vibrational match for the person that they are attracting in. Like attracts like. So it's only if they find somebody that is a vibrational match for them that they can attract that person in, and that person would be attracted into them, in which then they could siphon their energy off of them. So again, if you're living in the high vibration, you're not going to be a vibrational match for them. Because again, even though they're not siphoning the physical representation, which would be blood, they're still siphoning your energy off of you. So it is, yes, a less violent version of the vampires, but they are not peddling in blood, but they are peddling in energy. Now, what was shown to me is that Ursula from The Little Mermaid is in fact a very good example, which is another way of saying whoever wrote the character Ursula for Disney's The Little Mermaid actually knew what they were doing. Because she is a very good example of a witch. Because what did she want from Ariel, the Little Mermaid? She wanted her voice. And what is our actual voice? It's part of our essence. Because without our voice, we cannot share and communicate what resides within us. There's no way to bring it up, to bring it out, and to bring it forth into the world. So our voice is actually an essential component to how we can exist in the world. So she wanted Ariel's voice because that is actually part of Ariel's essence. And look then thereafter, through the rest of The Little Mermaid, how disempowered Ariel was actually showing up because she didn't have a voice and she couldn't communicate and she couldn't share. Now, why did Ursula want Ariel's voice? Because she could use Ariel's voice, again, which is part of her essence, to spellcast. And that's what she did with the prince in The Little Mermaid, Prince Eric. She cast a spell on him using Ariel's voice. Do you understand how it's, oh my God, it's so actually incredible. When you break it down bit by bit, it's like, wow. She needed the soul's essence, which is again a representation of the form of what the form of what the witches actually want to use. They want to use somebody's energy to spellcast with it. Because that's what Ursula did in The Little Mermaid. She extracted temporarily, right? There was like a 3-day time limit. She temporarily extracted a part of Ariel's essence so she could spellcast with it. And the poor unfortunate souls who couldn't pay her back, what happened to them? They would then be imprisoned, in which then Ursula the witch would have them to forevermore siphon their energy off of them. And that is why once the poor unfortunate souls that couldn't pay the price back to Ursula, what happened to them? They were imprisoned and they shrunk in size until they were tiny. Because what happened? Ursula siphoned the fullness of their own energy into herself. So she extracted all there was on an energetic level to them, which then shrunk them down to being like a physical representation of a nothing. Because their life force energy had been siphoned off of them almost in their entirety. Thus would make Ursula the witch stronger. Now, what was shown to me is that many modern day witches do in fact do the same. Again, a hemming at the truth. And if you want to learn more about this, I have linked the video that I have done on the Kardashians down below. Because one of the things that had come out in our exploration of looking at the Kardashians behind the veil is that they are witches and they are in a coven and they are very much siphoning off the energy of their partners. So they are, if you will, energetic black witches. They are energetic black widows. Where they are, what is the black widow? It mates and then it kills the mate. So it extracts whatever it needs from the mate and then the mate is not needed any longer and they have no use for it, so they actually kill it. However, because we're not talking about insects, we're talking about human beings, each of those mating seasons tend to last for any set period of time, depending on however long they need to actually extract the essence of what they are there to extract out of their partner. I.e., why some of the Kardashians have been with their partners for many, many years, whether or not they married them, and why they have almost, if you will, had like a rotating door. You know, how long was Kim Kardashian married to Evan Humphries? Like, what, 70 days? She didn't need a longer mating season to extract all the energy that she wanted to out of him and off of him. But because Kanye had a much richer and potent energetic imprint, she needed to be with him for a longer amount of time to siphon all of the energy off of him. Also look at, what's her name? I honestly don't know them apart. I can't tell them apart. There's, not Kim. It might be, no, it's not Chloe. I forget the other one, the one that was with Scott Disick for many, many years, right? He was the energetic gift that kept on giving, and that's why she was with him for such a long amount of time, because she was very slowly siphoning the energy off of him. And again, if you want to learn more about this, you can check out the video that I had done on the Kardashians. So modern day witches are essentially, if you will, low vibration energy workers, and therefore one should always be wary of purchasing candles or potions from anyone when we do not know what energy they are working with or what energy they are infusing into their products. Now, I'm also going to say that anybody that calls themselves a good witch, at least from what was shown to me, anytime we are engaging in something other than God's pure life force energy and working with that, anytime we're working with anything that's of a three-dimensional level, it's already a step removed or many steps removed from God. Therefore, if they are working with anything other than pure source energy, then they are also, whether they claim to be a high vibration witch or not, there is no way that they can be a high vibration witch. Because you're either working with pure source energy, i.e. the divine, i.e. God's energy, or you're working with something of a three-dimensional level. And if we're working with something of a three-dimensional level, it's an indication that our own personal vibration has been lowered and has been compromised. That's why we can't actually connect to the divine. So irrespective of what somebody claims to be, we should always be asking them, what energy are you working with? And if they're saying they're working with anything other than the divine, their own internal personal energetic blueprint has been lowered. And frankly, if anybody is working with anything, if anybody even claims to be a witch, personally, again, 2% opinion, I would be wary of it. Because anyone that's working with pure divine source energy is going to say, I'm a light worker. Because I would identify as a light worker. I would not say that I'm a witch. Because I'm not. I'm working with the divine's energy, i.e. light, i.e. I'm a light worker. So if anybody is choosing to characterize themselves as anything but other than a light worker, and they are sharing with you that they are an actual witch, high vibration or otherwise, please understand that they are already stepped away from the divine. Because if you're with the divine, you're calling yourself a light worker. There ain't nothing else. There ain't no other title to go by other than light worker. Right? If we're calling ourselves something other than a light worker, it's because we are not connected to the energy of the divine. And then therefore, any energy that we're working with is a lower, denser vibration and a more compromised energy as well. So that concludes the reading that I have on the witches for you. That includes the reading that I have done as a whole on Halloween. And again, as I had shared before, the intention of me doing this is not to influence you in any way, shape, or form, but just to give you the full amount of information so that then therefore you can take that and you can apply that into your own life in making at least an informed decision with what you want to give your energy and effort and focus onto. So as always, with all of my videos, please do take what resonates and leave the rest behind. And until next time, please stay in the high vibration.